Okay, so good afternoon to everybody. First of all, I wish to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity, I'm sorry, to present in such a distinguished audience and in such a magnificent place. Thank you very much, the organizer again. As you can see, the talk of my presentation is olive oil and the heritage of the Greek Mediterranean diet, priorities for research and education. I will start my presentation with the verses of a Greek poet who was Nobel laureate. It was Odysseus Elitis. He said that this poet, if you disintegrate Greece, in the end, you will see that you are left with an olive tree, a vineyard, and a boat. With an olive tree, a vineyard, and a boat, you can rebuild Greece. So, my colleagues, dear colleagues and friends, olive trees, they have been forever in the Greek landscape. Thus, in 1948, a team from the Rockefeller Foundation came to Greece in order to assist us and to examine the situation, because at that time in 1948, we were in a very difficult position after a Second World War. May I remind you that we have an awful civil war which lasted at least till 1948. So the situation was very bad in Greece. But in this report, in this Rockefeller report written by Olbo, he said that olives and olive contributed heavily to the energy intake. Food seemed literally to be swimming in olive oil. And this reminds me, my very good friend, I have the honor to be friend of Walter Willett, almost 30 or 40 years ago, sometime in a small village in Greece, in Porto Rafti, he discovered how the Greek foods, they were swimming in olive oil in a Greek taverna at that time. Having said that, I wish to stress to the fact that the culinary art or the culinary the practices, they are built around the olive oil. Mediterranean diet, the true Mediterranean traditional diet, do not exist without olive oil. Then we're talking, of course, type of Mediterranean diet. And then I choose to present you very briefly some foods, some recipes which they are called ladera. Keep in mind that the word ladi means olive oil in Greek, and ladera means foods prepared with olive oil. In all these recipes, which they are based on, it's a plant-based dishes, and in which vegetables or pulses, they are cooked in olive oil. The very first start is what we call tsigarisma. It's kind of sauteing. We saute in hot olive oil, garlic, tomatoes, onions, and then we add many herbs. We add oregano, parsley, basil, capers, carrots, whatever you think, for 1 minute. Then we add olive oil, and slowly we cook them over a slow flame. This means that through olive oil, we consume a lot of vegetables, a big variety of vegetables, and not only vegetables, white herbs. We have more than 150 wild herbs which we consume, not in ladera, but in another national Greek traditional food, pita. So olive oil is part of our everyday diet. It was at least, and it is to a certain extent. And it's not only connected to health, it's connected to culture and to economy and to tradition. But the question which comes is, do we, today Greeks, we follow this tradition? What do we eat? Fortunately, we have a very recent national survey, the IDRIA survey, which was implemented in more than 4,000 Greeks in a national representative sample, and in which we follow the methodology approved by European Food Safety Authority and the European Health Examination Surveys. And the data we obtained, they are comparable with the ones of other European countries. So in this survey, we found out that indeed Greeks, they are still consuming a lot of olive oil. 42%, as in the 1948, as in the report of Ansel Keys in the 7-country study. Greeks, they consume a lot of total fat. I do not like the term total fat because at that time and for many years we were suffering from this term, because in Greece, the reduced fat meant reduced olive oil. So sometimes I'm using the term lipids, in which we separate the fat from oils, and we have seed oils and olive oils, and so on. So we still, in Greece of today, we consume a lot of olive oil, a lot of fat, and a lot of oils. But these oils, they are not only olive oil as it was in the past. It was a slow and steady marketing of seed oils and margarine. And you see now that 14% of this 40%, it comes from margarine and from other oils. And then if you look at the cooking ways, you see that still the stewed, which is translated the lavera, the oil dishes, mainly we are consuming olive oil. Olive oil is the white bar. And then you see that in the frying, we are consuming also a lot of margarine, seed oils, and all those other oils, which most of the time they are palm oils. And they are used in the restaurants and in the catering sector. And they are used because for technological purposes and for the price purposes, they are much cheaper. And I was impressed because today I think that it was mentioned by Dr. Sorondo about Ukraine and that there is a lack of seed oils. And then 10 days ago, the Greek Ministry for Agriculture decided thousands of land to be planted and to be cultivated seed oils, and more specifically the ones which they are producing in Ukraine, in order to face the demand for this kind of frying. It's a question of policy. And then there is a lot of debate in Greece and say, why to cultivate and not to replace again with olive oil for frying? This is a question of policy, and we'll come to that later. So as I mentioned before, from this 20%, most of it is coming, more than 40% of total fat intake, the 20% is coming from monounsaturated fat. And also, if you see the consumption of total fat and of olive oil in various age groups, you see that the older you are, the more olive oil you consume. The older you are, the more total fat you are getting. This is translated that the more vegetables and legumes you are using because of the culinary practices and how we're using and what is meant in olive oil for us. If you move into younger generations, then less olive oil is consumed, less vegetables are consumed, less fruits are consumed, less wine is consumed, and more hard liquors and beers. Thus, don't be surprised that although the adult population adheres to the traditional Mediterranean diet by 28%, if you look how many they highly adhere to the Mediterranean diet are the persons who are over 65 years old. And it's only 25 years old which they adhere to the traditional Mediterranean diet. And then, of course, it was mentioned before by Francesco how many they meet the international guidelines. Less than 70% they meet the international guidelines in Greece today for the consumption of more than 400 grams of fruits and vegetables. And 50% they do not meet the recommendation for less of 350 grams per day of red meat. Again, if you look again, it was mentioned about the contribution of industrial processing of foods in the household level. This rise to 25% in the Greek households. And the data, they are quite old. They refer to 2012. I don't know today, but it's 10 years old, this data. Moreover, the dietary supplement, they are today, 31% of the population, they are using dietary supplements. 40% of women who they are high consumer of fruits and vegetables, but they claim that they have a kind of a chronic fatigue. And 22 of men, which most of these men, they're urban dwellers, they live in urban areas, they are well educated, and by declaration, they have good health. And which kind of supplements? Vitamins, mineral, calcium, and iron, mainly. So, what to do now? I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation about the traditional foods. For years, I claim and we study the traditional foods and the recipe, because at least the ones in the Greek Mediterranean diet, these recipes, they have gone through the test of the time. Most of them, they are healthy. Sometimes they have a lot of salt because of preservation reasons. But, of course, this can be avoided today with the refrigerators. But the traditional foods are part of being strongly related to our culture. I could speak for hours about this relation of the various recipes and to our culture. Apart from that, they are plant-based. They are locally produced. And that means that they serve biodiversity, they serve sustainability, and they provide work to the local people. Then another issue which I think that is very important for Greece, for the situation in the farmers' market. Farmers' market is a golden opportunity to increase vegetable consumption and fruit consumption. And vegetables in Greece, mainly they are eaten as main food, not as a side salad. And then, at least in Greece, at the farmers' market, theoretically, they are the local producer, they are offering to local people their local products. Today, they are, even in farmers' market, they are offered foods imported from Israel, from Egypt, from Turkey, and even from more than 300 kilometers away, even within Greece. There are not rules. We have to be more strict and to educate both the buyers and the farmers. And then I mentioned before about the use of olive oil and in the catering section, and about the seed oils and on all the changes which happen. I think that it's trendy now to speak about healthy foods, seasonal foods, sustainable foods. The caterers, they have to understand that there is a benefit, financial benefit for them, to educate them and to educate the public also. Closing my presentation, I want to mention that there is a need to move from the evidence to policies. We have enough evidence, at least I'm speaking for my country. We have enough evidence. And we need to have policy at the school level to educate medical doctors, to educate caterers, to educate consumers, to speak about the relation, I was recommended in the churches on Sunday after the liturgy to give some lessons, to give some advice to the people who they are attending the church. But of course, we have to focus on the research on medical issues, on health issues, but also to have a research multidisciplinary, taking under account culture, environment, and economy, of course, focusing in olive oil. Thank you for your attention. Sorry.